Continue on with these lessons. I believe we're doing like this is like 13B. This is lesson 13. It's like 13B. Keep forgetting to put that up there. So we're moving along here. We're getting quite deep into some of our skills here. We're going to continue working with these what we call one-step equations. Remember, an equation in math is simply it's a sentence. So when we talk about these sentences, they have to make sense. And from the other lesson we talked about, we have to seek out the truth, we have to make it balanced. So there's the scale concept when we're working with equations. So again, we want to solve for x or get x by itself. That's the common way you always hear it. Solve for x or get x by itself. But remember, we don't always have x as our variable. So in this case, I actually have to solve for m or get m by itself. So looking at the problem, we have 5 times some number equals 20. 5 times some number is equal to 20. Our goal is to make that a true statement. So in this problem, we're thinking that we have a scale. And again, with an equal sign, there's this right side of the scale and there's this left side of the scale. It's pretty clear that there's a 20 on this right-hand side. And over here we have 5 times some number. 5 times some number has to give me 20. So if you can use your own reasoning skills, 5 times what is 20? If you can say 4, you're done. You found the solution to this problem. You can just write down m is equal to 4. Because, again, 5 times 4 is 20. So you can say m is equal to 4. You can move on. Now, also we have these inverse operations. So as far as strategies go, if we can pay attention to the operations, that's going to be a clue of how to solve the problem. So when we have multiplying and dividing, we know that those kind of go together. So notice how this 5 is connected to this m by multiplication. What this tells me I can do is use division to solve this problem. So what I can do is divide this side by 5, because these 5s will now divide out of the problem. But if I divide this side by 5 to keep it equivalent, I must divide the other side by 5 to keep it balanced. So these 5s are going to divide out, and that's going to give me my m, and we know that 20 divided by 5 is 4. And therefore our answer is m is equal to 4. Now remember, 5 divided by 5 is not 0. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So what we have is 1m, or we just write that as m. Remember, 1m, that 1 there is understood to be there. We just don't put it there. It's not necessary. So when I see an m, it's understood to be a 1m. Okay? So let's look at this next example. I have some number divided by 3 has to equal 10. So again, in equation thinking, it's important that you see there's this left side and right side. Actually, right side and left side. So my right side, my left side. My right side I have this 10. My left side I have some number divided by 3 is 10. What can you cut into 3 parts and get 10? Well, if we can't see that, remember, if this is division, we can work backwards to get that. 10 times 3 is 30. So 30 divided by 3, yeah, 30 is the answer. Now, if we're using some algebraic thinking as well, with equations, what we do one side, we do the other. If I wanted to mark this 3 out, since this is division, I would have to multiply by 3 over here. But if I multiply by 3 over here, I must also multiply by 3 over here. So when I put that 3 there, this 3 on top is going to divide with that 3 on the bottom. 3 goes with 3 one time, and 1w is just simply w. And 10 times 3 would give me then my 30. So that's how, again, we can get that w by itself by using what we call inverse operations. We can kind of think backwards and get back to the beginning. So when I see that division symbol, that's kind of telling me I can use multiplication to get to my answer. But remember, I got to show that multiplication on both sides of the equation. So looking at number 3, I have negative 6 has to equal this p divided by negative 11. So on this problem, it's clear that the left side is a negative 6. But what we're trying to figure out is what can you divide by 11 to get a negative 6? What can you divide by what number can you divide by negative 11 and get this negative 6? That's a little harder for me, but always remember that if I see division, then I know that these are connected by multiplication. Negative 6 times negative 11 would be 66. So if I put a 66 there, 66 divided by negative 11, that would be negative 6, so that does work out. Now, equation thinking picks up on that since this is division, what we want to do is multiply by negative 11. If I multiply by negative 11, I also got to multiply this side by negative 11. So I kind of squeeze that in there like so. So what I end up with is these negative 11s, since that's on top and that's on bottom, they divide out. A negative 11 goes into a negative 11 one time, and 1 times p is just p. And I've achieved my goal. In solving equations, I won't get that letter by itself. I've isolated it. All I have to do now is just do this math over here. That's where the real math is. Most of the time, this math is just basic. It just marks out. But over here, we actually really have to do those calculations. A negative 11 times a negative 6 would end up being 66. So that kind of tells me my solution. P has to equal 66. That's the cool thing about equations, is you can actually read those left to right, right to left. So I can say 66 is equal to P. I can also say P is equal to 66. It still makes sense. Looking at number 4, I have some number, well actually I have a negative 7 times some number has to equal 42. So again, in my equation thinking, I'm thinking of this scale. The right hand side is a 42. I have a negative 7 times some number has to give me a negative 42. If I'm good with my math skills, negative 7 times negative 6 is actually 42. That would be the solution. W would have to equal a negative 6. If I'm a little short on those memorized skills, I still have strategies. The strategy says, hey, you know, this negative 7 is connected to that W by multiplication, which means these two numbers have to be related by division. Well, in other words, I can isolate the W by dividing this by negative 7 as long as I divide this side by negative 7. So when I saw that multiplication, that's triggered me to think backwards and use division. So that negative 7 does go into negative 7 one time, so that divides out. 1W, or W, is equal to then a negative 6. So 42 divided by negative 7 is indeed a negative 6. And we should know that, but if not, I mean, the calculator is at your disposal at this level. So you can always take advantage of that. Okay? So again, we call these one-step equations because it typically takes just one step to get to our answer. Okay? So that's kind of our beginnings, and we're going to kind of build on this. So stay tuned.